Thank you. Thank you, Dana.
Thank you, Dana. Grazie, Andrea. Thank you very much. We will keep it going now. All ready to go. Brad Christian from LaBella Associates to talk stadiums and training facilities.
Well, thanks, Marius, everyone, for having us back this year. Last year, we gave a presentation that perhaps was a little bit more technical. It was based on an article that we wrote for Stadium magazine about doing purpose-built stadiums for women. This year, since we're back, we're going to share some of the projects that we're currently working on, and we'll touch on many of the things, many of the points and things that need to be considered to design sports facilities that are very inclusive for women, either purpose-built or shared, but definitely things that need to be considered.
Hello, my name is Brad Bartholomew. The mic is very loud.
It's good.
All right. My name is Brad Bartholomew. I am the Global Director of Design for LaBella. As Christian mentioned, we have a focus in sports and entertainment, and even more specifically, I would say, in women's purpose-built facilities. It's something we're very passionate about, and something that is something that we focus on in great detail. And so, I guess last part of the introduction, it's great to be back and happy to share some of the great experiences we've had with great relationships we made since the last time we were here a year ago as well.
So I'm Cristian Petschen. I lead sports, entertainment, and public venues at LaBella Associates. And a little bit about LaBella. We're about 2,200 architects and engineers. We're also the preferred architect of the USL. We also work with MLS and many other leagues. But what this has afforded us with the USL is that we're doing around 35 different stadiums. And a lot of these stadiums are going to be for men and for women. And generally, they tend to be somewhere between 5,000 seats and 15,000 seats, which has allowed us or given us the opportunity to really do a lot of research and development and kind of understand how to design facilities that aren't very expensive or that can be done in phases, which is very relevant, obviously, for the women's game, because a lot of the teams don't have the same kind of financing. And we feel that a lot of this kind of technology and design techniques that we're developing are allowing us for teams to be able to have their own stadiums as well.
Yeah, real quick, I think just to add on to that, there's something that, and we'll get into the detail, I think, of some of the specifics of the mechanisms we use to kind of phase projects and kind of work through projects. But the key part to that is that, we're not eliminating design. So even if we're finding more cost-effective ways to create facilities that can flex as the club needs, smaller, larger, for specific events, we're not eliminating design and creativity. So these things are still very much a reflection of what the club is, what the culture is, what the community represents within the club itself. And it's something that we've never taken, out of that. So it's something that's, I think, a really important part to kind of note as well.
For sure. And a lot of these clubs are new. So again, it's another opportunity for us to be working on the brand, to be working on these new concepts and maybe doing things in a different way because they're being built from the ground up. So one of the very important things that we need to consider is equity. So obviously we know that women have traditionally been playing in purpose-built stadiums, training facilities for men. And that's something that needs to change. That's something that we're working on, is putting the hat on. If we're going to build things that are for women, they should, if it's shared, they should have their own facilities, and we should think what is, really listen and how do we build this from the ground up. That is important. Accessibility is a big thing. Also, how do you provide more access to a wider variety of people? How do you provide more access for women as well? Sustainability is one of the things that we feel that working on women's facilities is more relevant because generally women are more socially conscious, they're more progressive, and when we're working with these teams and owners that are creating these teams, they're going to be more worried about what the community wants, and sustainability is one of the big things. We see kind of two legs to the sustainability. One is obviously, it has to do with natural resources, renewable energy, water conservation, and things like that. But one of the things that we really think about is how do you create a stadium that's going to be sustainable over time? How is it even going to happen within the smaller budgets that the clients have? How are we going to think of fan experience and commercial opportunities within the women's scheme? How does the building itself can promote that as well to make the project more sustainable? We see ourselves as problem solvers. We're looking for solutions. We're trying to use our skills as architects, as designers, as artists, as looking at the business side and the social side, and how can we technically put that into the built environment to kind of promote that. And then the last leg is community integration. We think of stadiums and these facilities as places where they are actually community hubs. And instead of just a stadium that you play 18 games a year, it's a place also that has an outward reflection and kind of a symbol for the community, but also a place that needs to be able to be used 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And what can we build into these stadiums that become community hubs, where youth leagues can access it, where you have community spaces where things can happen in there. And then that creates another opportunity for us to be able to communicate to the general audience, to the public, to other women. Here are our athletes, here are our heroes, this is what they're doing. How can we do that to the architecture as well? So equity is one of the things that we think about. We got into it more actual kind of features before. I can speak of some of these things. This is one of the training facilities that we've worked on for Rhode Island FC, which is one of the stadiums that we did, and they have a women's team as well. So things like customized locker rooms, the right equipment and adjustability, kind of specialized conditioning spaces, recovery spaces with appropriate amenities, family areas. We see a lot of things like we need to have daycare. This is something that we need so that we can properly do what we need to do. Nursing areas, enhanced privacy features, added security in the spaces, and also using the use of technology, which is something we get very much into it, and we'll talk about some of these things, to prevent injury and improve the game, and then be really data-driven around performance and things like that, which are things that we need to add, like computer vision and things like that, that are working with the different apps and with the different technology that is capturing all of this as well. And then another thing in, for example, academies is that you need to have purpose-built spaces, rooms, areas, dining halls, etc., for women, even if it's men and women's academies. And then one of the things that we really think about, if there is professional training, if there are pros within the academy, how do they have kind of separate facilities? But at the same time, what are these spaces where they're coming together and there's a lot of mentorship, and how can they, the younger girls can learn from their heroes as well. Do you want to talk a little bit about this?
Sure. Sure. I think, there was a comment earlier, or in the first kind of conversation that we were having, something that really resonated with me was this kind of idea about, a transactional relationship versus something that's, way more impactful, and really, something that's focused on a relationship and really getting to understand and know, both the challenges and the opportunities that we all face kind of going through a project. And so I think that's something that we're very focused on, is really trying to understand, build a relationship first with the club and with the sort of whether it's the ownership groups or the supporters or whoever it may be, and really get an idea of kind of, goals, objectives, things that are very important to the key stakeholders in any project. So I say that to kind of reinforce when we're talking about inclusivity and experience. This is one example of a project that's very unique, very different, and it's really all about the place. So this happens to be in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and one of the things that's most kind of noteworthy there, in addition to the amazing landscape, is what they call Balloon Fiesta Park. So Balloon Fiesta Park has one of the largest hot air balloons rallies essentially in the world that happens for a couple weeks every year. And there's a picture on the right that kind of shows you just some examples of what takes place. But this actually became the site for a future stadium, which we're designing currently, and where we really sort of dug into what the community needed, not just from a soccer perspective or football perspective, a women's football perspective, but really what could be something that the community could use here. And so kind of the image in the lower left, what you're seeing is a stadium that not only kind of serves the event that takes place in the stadium and sort of mimics the landscape and the mountainous kind of surroundings that are there, but actually becomes a facility that looks out over this humongous public park, Balloon Fiesta Park, that obviously has the hot air balloons that everybody knows and loves, but it's also a place for families where, community soccer leagues, where many individuals kind of come, and it's kind of a key aspect of the overall experience and sort of the place. And
Yeah.
that's kind of what we were focused on.
And the women's game has a more diverse audience. So you're getting younger girls, younger boys that are going to the games. You're getting families that are going to the games. And this concept of creating stadiums as a community hub really works with that. And like Brad was saying, in this case, since the stadium itself, the entire West Grandstand, serves as the infrastructure for all the events that are happening in the park, we talked with the city and we were able to have them finance that entire infrastructure that, and everybody knows the West Side where all the hospitality is, tends to be the most expensive one. It's sometimes more than half the price of the stadium. And it's financed by the community, but they're seeing the value in it. And at the same time, in communicating it as a women's stadium, we're going to have women's athletes. It's actually, our heroes giving back to the community and sharing the facilities as well. And then again, the entire project is accessible. It's wheelchair accessible. We have, lactation rooms. We have sensory rooms. We are thinking about the entire kind of demographic that's going to be there and how can we design spaces for them. How can we have, for every seat that there is in their house, there needs to be at least 1 square foot of bathroom. If we design a stadium and we see that there's no queue in the men's bathroom and there's a giant queue in the women's bathroom, we made a huge mistake. So these are the things that we're doing, and we're analyzing, actually doing data and measuring the projects afterwards and then bringing them back into our future designs. And it's not about what's the least expensive thing to do, but it's very smart, even from an investment point of view, to do something that actually functions right and people are watching the game and not worrying about that. Having trash bins in the bathrooms and sanitary napkins and all kinds of things that people aren't thinking about that we need to think about. And the way we know it is because we're listening to what's happening out there and looking at the data as well. And then another thing which is really interesting to us as architects and technologists, and we do, like I said, a lot of R&D, is if the stadium itself and the facility itself is a symbol for the community, and women are playing in this facility, how can we use technology to communicate to a greater audience, to the town, that this is happening? This is our Coliseum. These are where our heroes are playing. And they have things that they care about, and they have all kinds of themes that they want to talk about. So for us, things like gender equality, LGBTQ+ rights, and things like this, which are part of the community that loves the teams, how can we communicate that on the facades? So we're doing digital displays, and we're trying to do things that aren't, $1 billion, like the Sphere in Las Vegas, we're trying to do things that are $20,000 or $50,000 that you can do in a facade that can communicate and redress the entire inside and outside of the stadium, depending on the event that's happening there. And here we've added LED lights to the entire facade that it can change the colors of the team, and it can communicate Pink Day and all kinds of things that are happening there that we thought was a good opportunity as well. And another thing that we're doing is that we are seeing that there's a lot of teams that cannot build their facilities because just the financing isn't there. So we've developed what we call our prefab or modular practice within sports and entertainment. And we've designed systems that allow you to build a stadium and other facilities that can be phased. So you can do, for example, 2,000 seats, and then you can do 4,000 seats in 2-3 weeks. And then you can go to 10 and 15. So as you invest, the investors, when they're looking at this, they're saying, hey, I have X amount of money now. Let's get it going. Let's get the team going. Let's get the brand going. Let's have our own stadium. But over time, we can very quickly, without much disruption, scale the stadium up. And it's being manufactured, and it can be built within a few months, and obviously at a much better price. So the concessions, the bathrooms, the grandstands, everything can be built in a prefabricated way or modular, or it can be a hybrid system where you have conventional construction, but you have some elements which are, and it just really depends the project and what's the best fit. And obviously we talk with the teams to see what is best there. But here you can see in this image where you have, I think this was a 10,000 seater that's turning into a 15K with the other seating that comes above and comes down with the canopy and so forth in a very inexpensive way. This is another project that we're working on, which is a training academy. And I'm just going to touch on one point. So that building that you see to the right actually has men's and women's teams. So we have an entire hotel kind of building for women, an entire hotel for men. They have completely different entrances. They have all of their own amenities. They're not connected. Then we have the two fields, which are the practice fields that are the main fields. They're divided in two with a building, again, with facilities, concessions, bathrooms, yoga spaces, all kinds of things for the families to come, for the kids to come, for the husbands to come, to be able to be there and have a life as well with daycare center. And we can place these in different ways. So I'm just showing you a very small kind of modular prefab that can be moved system where we have, locker rooms, bathrooms, a food hall underneath, offices, and you can just see some of the a space for people to eat and watch the games and watch the players. A field where the kids can be playing with, coaches that are showing and organizing games while the women are training. Yoga spaces, spinning rooms and things like that. So it has to do, it's about life, right? You're not just a player, you're not just an athlete. You have a life, and you need to be able to focus, and you need to integrate the community and your family and other people in these spaces. So that's one of the things that we've done. I don't know if you want to touch on. All your stuff is coming, so
Yeah, I know.
we just split
I'm
it in
waiting.
half. So this is, we have two projects that are near and dear because they involve people in this room. John Paul Reynal, he's the founder and CEO, the president of the Women's Cup, and is also part of the team with Dario Sala that is working on this project. So this is a project that we're doing in Homestead, which is kind of the final frontier before the Florida Keys. So the Miami expansion, as we know, has gone north and south, and now we're reaching the Keys. And there's a huge community there, and there's still a little space there next to where NASCAR is. And we're building this facility that's going to be an academy. It's going to be Miami FC's stadium. It's also there's going to be a women's team there. And there's obviously all the training fields and infrastructure and learning center and all of this. But the story I want to tell about this is that this was a project that was very difficult to make happen. And we worked very closely with the ownership group and the city and the mayor to find the right site. But then also to say, hey, we're not just coming here to do a stadium and we're going to have a team. What does the community want? What is it that you need? Like, what infrastructure do you need for us to build for you as part of this project so that it's a win-win for everybody? So it's a win-win for the owners, it's a win-win for the community, it's a win-win for the city. There's economic impact behind it. So we work very closely with the owners and the cities and go to all the meetings, et cetera, to make this happen. In this case, there were tons of youth leagues that needed an infrastructure for them to be able to play. So we said, we're going to build you world-class soccer fields, synthetic, natural turf, et cetera, and we'll make them available. And we'll have an app, and from 4:30 on, you guys will be able to sign up and have your games, and on the weekends, you can play here as well. Then they said we need to have a rodeo, which you see in that stadium right now. This was an agricultural area, and they had rodeos. So we designed the stadium so once a year when they have this big event that everybody loves and people come from the whole region, they can actually function as a rodeo. You can put sand and do that. So that's an extreme example, but that's something they wanted, and we made it happen. Then the whole west side of the building has those community spaces. I'm going to show you some of them. That happen there where you have, the pitch club and the club lounge, and a lot of these spaces are spaces where people can have community things happen. They can have events, they can have the quinceañeras. There's obviously a large Latin American community is there as well. The city can have events and voting and make the voting accessible in the area within the spaces. So there's all this stuff where we said, hey, you have 12,000 to 15,000 square feet of community space within our stadium. And you can have events in the field, et cetera. So there was this whole collaboration and transaction that we did, which actually makes the project happen, but also it's wonderful for the team as well. So it doesn't need to be a fight, and it doesn't need to be kind of developers working against the community. This is sports. This is something that's healthy. How can we collaborate together? We also have a hotel, and we have the suites connected to the swimming pool in the hotel. So I think somebody had mentioned about fan experiences. You need to have the fan experiences. How do you make this fun? How can you have concerts? How do you have, party terraces and the suites connected to the hotel and the stadium, the pitch club with the stadium club, and the stadium club has terraces that overlook, and you have like 10 different types of tickets and seats that you can buy and have upgrades for different things to different events. So you have a menu, it's like having a continental restaurant. You may have someone that is vegan. You may have someone that wants to eat shrimp. You have everything on the menu, and obviously you want to match it to what the demographic is around in terms of how many items are on that menu. But we think of our design as experience design, and we think that we need to create those different experiences, and you can see some of them here. And then obviously the community spaces, the pitch club, the stadium club, the bars, something that will function hopefully 24/7. That's like what we say, 24/7, 365 days a year. So it faces outward. Things can be happening. There's revenue that's being generated. But again, they're really nice spaces that connect into each other so you can have events of all sizes as well. And then you see there's a bar overlooking the pitch as well. And I'll go through this one a little bit more quickly, but this is on the outside of LA. It's a team that's going to be in Riverside, California. They just announced it. This is bigger. Why not, if we're doing the stadium, and the stadium is a community hub, and you have the fields and all of these different things. My voice is so loud anyways that you could hear me.
I think they cut the mic because you were talking too much. But,
okay. Yeah. So if you have this, so this was an area in Riverside on the north which was kind of downtrodden, and there wasn't anything there, and it had been zoned to be an area where you had sports, and particularly football. So there were football fields there, soccer, right? Football fields there, and they were completely overgrown. It was, you can barely walk through there. So we worked very closely with a client that was partly owner of Orange County FC that wanted to have a new team for the USL, and we said, well, how can we create a district, a sports district around the stadium? So we have women's sports, but we also have the sports district, and we have a large swath of land that we can do this. So we have the indoor sports, we have the stadium, we have a hotel on it, we have a concert hall adjacent to it. We're creating a community. We have about 1,200 multifamily apartments around the park, and we went to the community, and the community said, we need kids park, we need toddlers park, we need a dog park, and we gave them all these things, and we're creating a community around it, which I think it was a good experience. So this is a video. We'll cut through it so you can.
You don't want to see the video? Okay.
Nah, it's fine. I think we're running out of time.
Okay. So I think as we wrap up, there's a couple of projects that we wanted to share kind of on the boards. women's focused facilities, projects that the first one we're going to talk about, is something that we're in the process of working on right now. Legia Ladies, you heard Amanda speak earlier. And so we were fortunate to make a connection at last year's event. And, this is a project that I think, for both Christian and I, it's something that's very important. It's way more than just a stadium for women to participate in. It's really about the opportunity to shape a culture in terms of how they see women's football moving forward in Poland. And so I think, this is the why behind it, what you're looking at right now. And it's kind of what we're passionate about, what we're continuing to focus on. So I think it's interesting. This is 1933?
Something like that.
Yeah, 1933, I think, in Warsaw, the stadium where the men's team plays now. It looks nothing like this today, but to give you just kind of a metaphor or kind of a story behind what we think we're trying to accomplish is sort of the transformation that you see from what this was in 1933 to what it is now, really the best facility in all of Poland. That's the same kind of sort of care and approach that we're taking to do a women's facility. The other part about showing you this image is, of course, you can see the big, large expression of the stadium, and now we're given this is our site to find the place to put a women's stadium. You can look around and see it's a little bit more compact in terms of the area available, but this is part of what I think what we're passionate about. What we love doing is sort of coming up with creative solutions, even in there, things that may seem somewhat complicated. So this is kind of a quick aerial of the site that we're focusing on, which in this image, you can go to the next, I think, actually. Yeah, is basically just to the left side of the existing stadium on this image here. What we're trying to do, obviously, is not just a place dedicated to the Legia Ladies in terms of a stadium, accommodate all their kind of needs from a capacity standpoint and just functional use standpoint, but also create something that, in many ways, will have an experience that's, well, hopefully even better than the main stadium. And I would even go as far to say, it's certainly one that we're trying to focus on and design specifically for the needs of Legia Ladies. So just a few details about it. There's on the other side of this image, you can probably flip through it. So you can see kind of the main stand on the west side. There's actually field seats that wrap around the entire stadium, but the west side, not only is it kind of premium areas, so includes a hospitality space, a club space, includes suites, it includes women's dedicated facilities in terms of locker areas and other needs in the building that you see just set behind it. But it also serves the community. And so you can see a couple of smaller sort of community-sized pitches that are happening just to the left of that. So this is not, a building or a facility that will, only be for match day, but it's something that's going to be an active participant in women's lives and in families' lives and in the community's lives, on a daily basis. And then just again, kind of showing the creativity, part of this is understanding how can we execute. And there was, because of the tight conditions of the site, some things we needed to do to accommodate some of the existing facilities that were already there, like a tennis stadium. And so actually using that as a sort of leveraging the needs that they may have in that tennis stadium to actually grow and increase the size and scale of the impact that we could have with this women's focused facility as it now kind of stretches down and kind of culminates on the northern side of this tennis stadium.
And we could have a restaurant and all these other kind of fun experiences.
You have a video, right?
I
look
think
forward to that.
There.
So yeah, I think it's been amazing kind of working with Amanda and her team on the project. We certainly feel sort of fortunate and blessed to be a part of it. And it's something that we're very excited about. We were there just a few days ago, and it seems there's a lot of positive momentum moving forward on the project, so we're excited about that. Let's go to I think it's the last one. So, this is just trying to reinforce the impact of women's football. This is a project in Charlotte, North Carolina, for the Carolina Ascent. They're a relatively new club in the Super League, which is part of the USL, but they're having an outstanding year, and they're in playoff position and really have been I would call it a bright beacon within the city of Charlotte, just in the success, because some of the other sports teams have not been that successful, by the way. So I think there's a real momentum behind this. And so we're working on what I think is so impactful about the image, and you can go to the next one that we're going to show you, is because of that success, they're really trying to expand the fan experience. Currently, they play in a facility that is, it's pretty simple, straightforward. It's a pitch, and there's some benches, and they're happy people show up. And I think what you're seeing now is kind of the power of their success and the momentum they have. We've been working with them to kind of improve upon that fan experience at their facility. So it's a 10,000 seat facility. Their sort of women's facilities and locker facilities are in that building to the left, but we're incorporating different clubs and suites, field box areas. We're actually expanding what's happening on the left side, which is currently open, but again, more premium areas that would have loge boxes and suites in those areas. And you can probably go to the last image. Do you have the night? Yeah. And so what we're trying to do now is, instead of grow capacity or quantity, we're really trying to focus on, can we create something that improves experience? Can we create spaces that are more family-oriented, community-oriented, more of gather spaces that you can share, versus, kind of what the typical,
Just the seats.
just the seats kind of experience would be. So you're looking at, potential future club with the city sort of backdrop, that you can have, communal bars and food and beverage options and services that, can be a shared experience versus kind of side by side in your seat.
I think it's a good example of existing stadium that you're adding all these things to. It's very hard to do because obviously it has an existing structure, but we're doing this in several stadiums, these kind of things.
You just go to the end. I think we're about, you have the night shot, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this kind of, lastly, there was not, again, all of the seats were open previously, so we're going to incorporate, essentially full coverage of all of the seats. And again, this is really related to that fan experience element that we're trying to accommodate. So it's not something where, because in the summertime in Charlotte, it's hot. 95, it's humid.
And it rains.
It's, it's uncomfortable. And so what we're trying to create is a place where people, the fan experience is not less because we're coming to a women's match. Instead, it's, what we're trying to accomplish is world-class and really the best, experience that you can have in the community.
So this is a project we were working on last year that we presented, and we just wanted as a closing show that now we finally inaugurated it about, about 4 months ago.
It was May, I think.
Yeah, and it's been extremely successful. Every single game has been packed. Basically, every seat in the house is sold. The community has adopted the team. They made it to the semifinals, which was really exciting.
Oh, they made it to the final.
Last year, to the
Runner
finals,
up,
yeah,
yeah.
to the finals last year. And, you can see a lot of these spaces that we talk about and the fans there. Does anybody have any questions?
I have a statement, that's all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's awesome. I mean, I'm really inspired by this, and I'd love to see some of this in the UK. I think we struggle in the big cities to have space in order to expand out.
Yeah.
And obviously it's going to take us, but I'll talk to you separately about that. But I think it's, we can all fight for inclusive spaces. And, I can't remember the last time I went to a football match where I felt that everything wasn't designed for a man. It's still designed for a man, even when you integrate women's football into the men's stadiums, that your women still have to queue, and the stairs, way you wind to go up, and there's still a crowding experience, and then people are drinking around in pubs, public houses,
Exactly.
but they're not focused inside the stadium. And, you know, I want to have a joyful experience when I
Exactly.
go to football. I've been going to watch football for 50 years, and, you know, and I'm used to the ambience. But what I would love is a joyful experience when I go to football that doesn't just take 90 minutes and an interval. I'd like to be there a bit before.
Yeah.
I'd like to be there after.
Exactly.
I'd like to, you know, bathe in the glory.
Yeah.
Or
Hopefully the glory.
but I would love to, you know, even at Wembley, I go to Wembley and I still think it's a stadium designed for men. It's not a stadium designed
For sure.
for women. So I think, I'm only talking about my country, but I don't think we've got it right. And I would hope that people will be innovative and aspirational and adopt these principles in terms of designing inclusive spaces. But for one, I would stay in the ground longer if I had something like this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, we agree with you. So I just want to leave with one statement. We feel that there's a lot to be done, and we've heard it from everybody so far, and I'm sure we're going to be hearing it. And I think each of us, with our own skills, our own kind of toolkit, for us, we're artists, we're designers, we're working on stadiums, we can do our part to make the women's game better, more inclusive, et cetera. So I think that's something that all of us are trying to do. Use what we know, the skills that we have, to kind of add to this.
Just a quick question. I mean, I think what you're doing is amazing, and I was thinking about the stadium in New Zealand, which is over water, and then I think about small nations like here, I think about Greece, and I think about Malta, and I think about how this will work for fan engagement, but also the economic impact.
Absolutely.
So you create more space, it's a bit more
That's right.
futuristic. What I did love about what you did is it's also got other points of community emphasis, so there's that mass utilization. Question, do you have, and this is always going to be the case because the governments I'm thinking of that I get to work with are going to see the challenge in the how do we fund this. So does your model, I mean, I like the modular system that you've got, but do you have links to investment houses?
We do.
Okay, that's great. That was my
We work with investors.
Yep.
So we see ourselves as solution providers or facilitators in many ways. So since we are, quote unquote, in the business, we bring investors. A lot of these are public-private partnerships, and those are hard to navigate, but we're making them happen. And the secret is to do a market study, to do an economic impact analysis, to go to the communities and ask them what they want, kind of create that dream and that vision through the renders and everything that shows them that they're going to get the infrastructure, what they're actually going to get, that they're actually going to get, and not say that you're going to get it and then you don't get it. And then use those examples of the projects that actually happen and the actual economic impact that it gave the city and everybody else as examples for the next one as well. And those players that are part of these things that are investing, which Rhode Island FC is a very good example, they did this, and now they started a fund to help others do it as well, because they saw it was good business as well. Because if you do it right, if you have the right public-private partnership, and it's a project that is sustainable over time, and the fans start filling up the spaces, and then it's, like you said, you stay there, guess what? You're also capturing that revenue. So we start thinking about those things so it's sustainable over time, and it works, and then investors, they connect the dots, you know, and
because it's a complete answer for small island nations who rely on tourism.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Tourism and wellness tourism is quite a big impact now. And if you take this, you dial it like 20 years, 30 years, 40 years into the future, you're kind of looking at the segments that Dubai leans on and East has leaned on, that innovation, and you're just taking it that much further.
Exactly.
So science and delivery for economics as well.
exactly.
Fantastic.
Well, thank you very much.
Well, I have a compliment, Christian and Brad, before you go, right here,
Where are you?
right here. I have a compliment and a question. First of all, the compliment. I've had the opportunity to work with you, Christian, in the Homestead project. You guys do amazing, amazing work. Really, if anybody here is thinking of building a stadium, I cannot recommend two gentlemen that are better at what they do, more professional, committed. Christian helped us win the P3 public-private partnership in Homestead. It was a very complex project, took over 2 years to convince the city to give us 65 acres of public land to build a stadium. But his work was instrumental in obtaining that permit, and the project is just amazing. So hopefully the future home of the Women's Cup and a professional women's team in the next couple of years. So congratulations to
We paid
Cristian.
him.
Thank you.
We paid him well, so thank you.
Okay. And to you, Brad, and to you. So after the compliment, here's the question. Women's football is a completely different beast. And the demographics are different. The fan engagement is different. The expectation of the fans are different. I was looking at some numbers here that just got published a couple of days ago about the transition of percentage of viewership or attendance in women's football went from 60-40 on the men's side about 4 years ago to about 50-50 today to 60-40 in 2 years on the women's side, right? So there'll be a predominant women audience. I think the study said that by 2030, it would be 70-30 at the stadium. So for every 10 fans that would be attending a match, there'll be 7 women and 3 men. What are you thinking as far as improving the fan experience for women that will be the predominant fan at the stadiums you're going to be building in the future?
Yeah, so it has to do with what somebody mentioned in the previous presentation. It's human-centered design. So you have to start from the ground up, and you need to see what the women's needs are and then design the space for it. And it may be different in one culture or one space than the other. But definitely, there's things that we see. We see, for example, areas, family areas, where basically has its own access and maybe doesn't sell alcohol as well. We see that for families that are coming with younger children and older folks, that's something that is very interesting. And I think lots of things that have to do with fan engagement as well. One of the things that we like to think of is women's football is a movement. And because it is a movement, it's not just a game. It's something that has kind of an idea behind it. And for example, one of the things that we're doing is how can you create spaces, right? It could be the terraces, it could be, within the concourses. We're actually communicating, creating opportunities for the brands to be displaying to the fans, because one of the things that makes these things possible as well is for them to understand that if you invest in the stadium, if you invest in the team, you're reaching people in a different way. You're actually being part of that movement, and your brand is not just how many eyeballs, but it's eyeballs times 3 because the kind of impact that it has as well. I don't know if I answered your question, but I think it was part of the presentation, some of those spaces that we were creating for the fans. I think that, and to summarize and not to get into the detail, is that there's just a lot of different experiences that are being demanded by the fans for the women's games, and you need to have a wide variety of things. Some of them are, like supporters that are engaged and they're beating on the drums and they're very vocal, all the way down to, rooms that are very quiet and have a different kind of experience and everything in between. And those they need to exist all over the stadium so that you can choose what you want and you can go directly to that experience as well.
Well, the other part I'd add is, there's very much kind of the infrastructure pieces, which is what Cristian was talking about. But I think there's also kind of, the brands and the experiences that you have in a stadium, particularly if it's one that's used for both men's and women's, the idea that we can change that so that it accommodates and addresses what women want, or what, when the women's team is playing, the fan expectancy is when they come to a facility. And so, we can, target brands, and whether that's naming rights or it's just, the certain things that you can have or experience when you're in a stadium at a women's match. I think we want to fine tune that and tailor that to be a unique experience, really focused on the women's football fan experience, and not just, whatever the stadium is, it is, and we go there and we kind of sit through it and it's okay. We want to do something that's really special, unique, and brings people back because it's so much different, it's so much better than the typical experience.
And spaces where the players can interact more with the audiences. we feel that in the women's game, that's something that's very important, the interaction between the team and the players and the fans. So creating those spaces where they can interact after the game and before and all that. So, any other questions?
A quick question. Firstly, it's great to see like incredible infrastructure that has been purposely built for this. But I do want to raise that obviously for many, this is a far-fetched reality. Like some women's teams don't even have the basic infrastructure. So I think I'd love to focus on kind of your learnings from this. If someone's kind of building on that trajectory of community integration, what have been your learnings in terms of like what has actually worked and maybe potentially things that you thought would be incredible and very forward-thinking, but turns out maybe it shouldn't be a priority? And maybe even Amanda could kind of like touch on this, because I know you've done a lot of work in community integration. So like what works to then actually go and then put it in a facility? But it would be great to hear your learnings, first of all.
So I think that we don't have a lot of time, so I'll try to summarize it. But I think the most important thing is that you need to go from 0 to 1. I think anything in life, if you want it to happen, and if it's not happening, you need to do something. So I think thinking even that small incremental things can be very important. So if there's no money and there's no support for doing an entire facility, maybe there's things that we can do with an existing facility that are going to make this better, and focusing on that and seeing how that can happen with all the different aspects, everything from maybe we do bring some public money. How can we make this part of some kind of grant? Or, you know, for example, we have an area of our company which is it's called the grant management kind of practice. So, you know, in the States, for example, every town, every municipality, there's states, there's federal things. You go and you look exactly in that specific space, and you would be amazed about the things that they find out. They find out, I don't know, that there's, the ground requires some remediation. And because of that remediation, they give you, you know, $3 for every dollar that you spend, which means that $2 can go for, you know, fan experience or athlete experience and things like that. Or there is a lack of academies or youth teams. And then maybe you have some kind of academy or youth team. It doesn't need to be something that is huge, but it can be something that's on Sundays and things like that, that are using the facilities and using maybe the practice field or a field that create in front of a park. And then, you know, they can apply for a $10 million grant that actually helps them build the facility. So it really is different in different places. It depends what's available and what the community needs. But I do believe that if you wait until you're going to have a whole stadium, it's like everything in life, right? You need to take the first step, and that first step gets you there, and then you build upon that. And I think that's the hat that we all need to have on. I don't know if you wanted to say something, Amanda.
I don't know. I kind of need to. So yeah. First of all, I just wanna sign under everything that John said about these two gentlemen. It's really a pleasure to work with you. We were recently in Warsaw to hopefully make this project come alive. To answer your question, I think the challenge that we have with this project on the Legia side and what we're doing is using the women's football as a top of the cherry, as the context. But as Brad showed in the presentation, you see the tennis courts. And what we're doing is to integrate the whole Legia Warsaw structure to sell a business. I'm not selling a stadium for my team. We want to create now the business plan to sell the business, right? You have a sportainment complex. You have a multidiscipline team in Legia Warsaw. If you see the terrace overlooks both sides, both the pitch and the tennis. Iga Świątek technically is a Legia Warsaw tennis player. So what we're thinking about now is to integrate now. Iga plays here, we play there, right? So this is the biggest challenge that we have, because to be honest, if I come to government or to brands, I want to build a Legia Ladies Stadium, they'll be like, good for you, you cute. You know, but if we say we're going to sell the restaurants, we're going to sell a wellness center, we're going to sell a spa, we're going to sell at the center of Warsaw, because nobody has the land that Legia Warsaw has, then I have the money that I'm going to put and get what we want in the end, which is have the the facilities, right? It's just because the market is not ready. It's just because people may not understand. So we'll have to go around to create it. So.
And every place is different. Maybe there's a grant for tennis that we can use that. So, you know, it's going to be used sometimes for tennis, but we create the whole facility, and that facility faces towards the women's stadium as well, and it's something that's being used. So we need to be smart about it. We need to see where we can get those grants. And us, we work with you and the town and everything to kind of create that dream and point it out, and then, you know, put numbers and data behind it as well using, you know, benchmarks and things like that. Thank you.